Yeah. Ding ding, let's go. Reflections. What is this life? Now, of course, we can define it. We can say the things that we seem to know are true, and that's helpful. Give yourself if you're looking at a map, the key, the legend, where it's like, hey, this is the landscape that we've at least seen. These are the parameters. These are the elements, at least that we've seen. And the we is the I. If we're doing this as a subjective practice, this is what I've seen. If we're going down this way, physically, metaphysically, or if we're going down this way, this is what I've seen, this is what I've experienced. But in going beyond that, and being more receptive to mystery, receptive to being surprised, because working with the kids, especially with the younger ones, when a routine is changed, they get a little angsty, anxious, and it's no wonder. Routine, habits, the same thing yesterday, the same thing today that was yesterday and last week. There's a comfort to that. There's a mental, emotional ease to that. And that's cool. That's totally fine. But we're older now. And we have this developed prefrontal cortex for complex logic and reasoning and metacognition, and there's one more that I'm thinking of. Abstract thinking, where there are multiple aspects going on, and you can be open to different parameters being shifted around and becoming something different. So, with all of that in mind and in heart, but with all of that going on, the fact that we're older and we're able to use more of our brain, more of our heart and soul, our intuition, our discernment, all of those things, it's high time, if we're not doing it intentionally, consciously already, it's high time to get comfortable in our discomfort. So this morning I was doing some Somasai. No. Somasai. P-S-O-M-A-P-S-Y. Somasai. That's something that I've developed, but it's a combination of different things that are already out there in the landscape. But it's essentially a more active and intense form of meditation with body movement, body shaking, and all that stuff. If you know anything about, like intense breath work or intense movement and shaking and dancing and things like that, Osho stuff, etc., etc. But it's really interesting how the necessary tension in life, the necessary yang, right? There's yin and yang. The necessary yin and the necessary yang, the necessary internal, the necessary external, the necessary push and the necessary being pushed, being held, being carried forth. Everything in balance, everything in flux. Everything complementing the others. So I find it really interesting how the more open and ready we are for tension, for uncertainty, the more it opens us up for the more light and fluffy and easy stuff. So, essentially to say, there really is no easy, quote-unquote, way out. And maybe you've heard the phrase, the only way out is through. And that goes in line with this concept of, if you want it easy, you have to, if you want it to be easy, you have to equally want it to be hard. And yeah, that sounds crazy, I know. But if you know, you know. It makes me think of the, just like the workout people, on social media, where it's like, you gotta pump, you gotta push, you gotta grind, just like the entrepreneurial influencers as well, where it's like, you want it, you gotta push, you gotta grind, you gotta do it every day, and stuff like that. And to a large extent, it's true. And then you have the opposite extremes of people who are very, existential, meditative, and just, calm and peaceful, where they're like, just be. Things rise, things fall. The best thing to do is just be. So there's merit to both of these camps. And yes, they are both, in a sense, extremes of one situation, which is life. How to live it, how to do things, how to be as self, how to do as self. So the common thread is self, the I, living, being alive, doing, resting. But the common denominator is the I, the self. And yes, the I, the self, can be connecting with others in society, among nature. So yes, all of that stuff certainly exists. I'm not saying deny others. But as a result of my immersion over the years into different ways to live life, and I've certainly come to the conclusion that there are more ways to live a thriving, successful, enjoyable life. More ways to live life than there are people, and that there ever have been people on this planet, where everybody is doing their thing. Now, arguably, a lot of people are doing similar things. Yeah, sure. But to have very acute, unique experiences as an individual that shifts you, even if slightly, that still shifts you into a different life path, a different lifestyle, a different life story. So, as a result of my curiosity of just observing all these different types of people, in person or online, hanging out with these people in person, talking to people in person, online, learning about different people and how they live their lives in person and online. Just so many thousands of people, so many thousands of lives living. I was going to say lives lived, but it's still going on. It's still, each individual is further clarifying and expanding themselves as we speak. Right? You are. I am. They are. It's all in unique individuality, just cascading in life here on Earth. It's wild. Absolutely. Like, I have to watch myself, like, as an introvert, the things that make me reflect and then stop talking. But I'm here, like, making this content. We're plowing through. So to go back to that topic of the yang aspect, the pushing aspect of life. So I was doing the somasai, the movements, and the shaking and the catharsis this morning, and perhaps I want to make it a daily endeavor. But it's just this concept of wanting for things to be hard, tough, tense, temporarily. Like, if you want those easy times, easy feelings, like, if you want that so bad, the only way to get there is through. The only way out is through. The only way to be part of something is to be part of its contrast. It doesn't have to be a blanket statement, a definitive statement, but you know how we do here, where it's this concept and you're using your discernment, your heart and soul, your intuition to feel out where it is applicable, where it is actually wise and true for you, where it does actually make sense, internal and external. And that's my effort, my intention, where I'm not just speaking just to speak. I'm speaking because I've had these, and continue to have these, amazing, just mostly internal with a hint of external, but these amazing, like, personal experiences. And you know what? It is a pretty solid balance of internal and external, but I reflect on it a lot, which is very internal. But to have these personal, just, job, career experiences, like friends and family experiences, and to, like, intend for me to, like, soak it all in, to get the intensity, to get the deliciousness of it all. Like, I love that. Like, I thrive on that. And I will continue to do that. I will further clarify and expand my vessel so that I can get more and more of that deliciousness, right? And I make these videos because I want all others who really get this type of stuff to feel it, to taste it, to get these samplers, these appetizers. Like, I'm giving him this stuff out. So therefore, like, you're getting a taste sort of vicariously, but like, to say words and to emote things can also unlock things in an individual, just from one person expressing themselves. It can go to another person. This is one of my many aims, like, to emit, to emote, and to, like, activate, to reactivate, perhaps, to rejuvenate other individuals, such as yourself, and to get that clarification, that expansion going, and then to perhaps inspire for you to just go out there and get more similar or, ballpark experiences out there in the world, in your personal world. Just get it for yourself, right? It's like to teach one to fish as opposed to just giving you fish, right? To teach you to hunt and gather this clarification and expansion of the heart and soul, true core self, and to share that outward as a natural byproduct. It's a beautiful thing. So just to wrap this up, you want the easy stuff, you want like the simple, the consoling, the beautiful stuff, then just as equally want the tough stuff. Sounds counterintuitive, maybe it sounds ridiculous, but that's life. We're working in this sort of spectrum, this polarity, this duality of sorts. It is what it is. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the field of teaching of non-duality, but they've got a lot of points. And at the same time, one of the arguments, at least that I've seen and felt within me, for not going too heavily into non-duality is like, okay, you understand, this landscape for what it is. There's extremism. So if you're centered and balanced in your isness, then you have it. You've done it. Peace and balance. And then the argument against, at least from what I've seen and what I've felt within myself, is, okay, you have the peace and balance, but life seems a little bit boring, bland, not necessarily stagnant, but just non-dynamic. Like, I want the dynamics, I want the peaks and the valleys and the spikes and the flips and the turnarounds and things like that, the epicness at times, right? Maybe not all the time. Like, love, peace, and balance, like, that's amazing. But sometimes it's like, maybe we want some epicness, some dynamics in our lives. And in my argument, ain't nothing wrong with that. So, speaking of dynamics and waves and peaks and valleys and epicness, that's the topic of today. You want it easy? You want it peaceful and balanced? Well, you gotta come to terms with the extremes. Love all sides. Maybe it's not both sides. Maybe there are, it's three-dimensional quadrants, etc. So it's like, love all the dimensions, make peace with all the dimensions, and have a bunch of fun while you're at it, right? And your exploration, your experimentation, your vivification of all angles, all dimensions. Learning more about yourself all along the way. Getting freaked out at times, but still having fun all along the way. And just being more in touch with yourself and with life all along the way. Can't beat that. Straight up. Let's end the video with some respects, as I like to do. Mad respect to you, mad respect to me, mad respect to all people for just surviving. And, perhaps extra shout outs to people who are not only surviving, but seeing aspects of themselves where they can be more clarified, more expanded, better in certain respects. And those little bits and pieces and ways where we're actually going for it. Seeing holes per se, seeing imbalances per se, and saying to ourselves, no more. I'm going to make a shift. I'm going to make a turn. I'm going to make a clarification and expansion in this certain pocket, in this certain direction. Let's go for it. Mad respect for things like that. Mad respect for life. All these elements, all of these layers, all these dimensions. The fire, the sun, the air, the earth, the food, the water, the shelter. The people in our attempts to live in balance, in symbiosis, in peace and harmony, to make a symphony, to have sympathy for the symphony, but for us making life harmonic, symphonic, with nature, with the elements, with each other. Like, mad respect to our efforts for doing that. And this ain't woo-woo nonsense. Like, if you know, you know. If you're true, you're true, right? I'll leave that at that. But just shout out and thanks and gratitude. This life is freaking awesome. And it's getting even more and more awesome to the extent that we are doing it up. That we are in that mode, on that path. Straight up. This is Mac 11. Catch you later.